Okay, services or normal service has been resumed. Councillor Monaco, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I hope my train of thought is still where it was earlier on. Thank you. It was just, I think, more of a appreciation of the services that you do in terms of what happens when the unfortunate is there, in terms of dealing with the youth that are now in custody, and how the service tries to bring them back into the communities. And it was just sad to hear that with some it's a bit longer, and with some it's just but really good. And I really appreciate and would like to kind of like call on Adele back to say they're really doing a good job, and thank you for what you also input into what they do. And I think I went over to the page 122 in terms of the priorities. It would be great to see the feedbacks in terms of all the topics that you've got there. You've got risk of the outside of home, and I know that you've got 6 months there. So if we could have all that kind of like with time scales. And the reason I'm saying this, and the reason I think I'm so much interested in this, is because I live in the most deprived area, and I do see crime, and my daughter had to go through where someone is actually on the day and she's watching, and I see what that has done in terms of having to deal with that as a parent, and it's hard. It's hard, and yes, it would be great to work with schools in partnership, really. And I see on page 125 that you are aware of the stats there. That's a start. But overall, thank you for this paper, and really welcome it and appreciate you all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. Just turning to the section on youth custody. Just shut my computer down, which had on what I wanted to ask. I was going to raise a point about those in custody and the use. The government recently permitted the use of parva, which was effectively pepper spray, in youth custody, recognising that I think the figure was that in the youth custody estate, the assaults on prison staff are 14 times higher in youth custody than adult custody. So in that process of the new government permitting the use of parva, what was the role of the Youth Justice Board or the local authority in engaging with that, and what's been the contact we've had since in terms of reviewing?
Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will, because I've been involved in those discussions. So I'm a member of the Youth Custody Board Safeguarding Group, which is a national group that DCSs or somebody who they delegate that authority to get together with youth custody service to keep oversight of any new developments. So we were informed of the decision was made around the use of parva, and the local authorities representatives, particularly those who have YOIs on their in their local authority, shared concerns about the use of parva on young people, and how that would be monitored. We were reassured there's a plan around that where the youth custody service will monitor the use of parva, will review every use of parva where there is an incident of violence on any use of parva on young people, and then if need be will also make the relevant referrals. We do see see an increase in particular in YOIs of peer-on-peer violence, but also violence against staff. There are still the research and the view on PAVA is still that it presents a risk to children and young people, and the long-term impact of that is often unknown. So we did share concerns in that space, as many of organisations representing children did as well. But we will continue to be part of discussions, the reviewing and the monitoring of the use of PAVA, and we are reassured by Youth Custody that that will be all incidents will be reviewed in that safeguarding space. They will also notify the relevant Children's Safeguarding Partnership of any use of PAVA, which for Leeds, that's the Leeds Children's Safeguarding Partnership.
I'd like to come back on that, Councillor Stapleton.
It'd be useful to track, and I think maybe that when this report comes next year, if there's a passage in it around that use and the statistics, if there's referral to ladder, there'll be some stats. It'd be useful just to see the use of that, I think.
Do you want to come back in? Yeah.
Just to come back in on that, our Youth Justice Partnership Board will also have oversight of any Leeds children on which PAVA is used against, because it's something that we will be monitoring from the service as well. So absolutely we can include those stats.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Any other comments? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and this was a really positive report, and it's very positive to see how much work is being done, and particularly around the preventative work as well. I was quite interested in one of the points on page 136, 137, talking about community tensions, and the example of Hales last summer was given, and some of the work that was done in response. I wondered if you could say a little bit more about some of the work taking place with faith communities. That was certainly something that has been raised with me, and I know it's been raised with my colleague Councillor Manaka and other ward members in that part of the city. And the point was made about, with that particular community, how important a role the pastors within some of the local churches played, and I know that this will be significant for other young people as well. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, we have started to try to link in with communities more. We really recognise the value of communities for not only our children but also for their families as well, and particularly thinking about faith communities, we see that there's such a role there for supporting parents and carers of our children. So we are starting to kind of look at how we can develop greater links. So I guess first of all, if you have ideas about how we might do that, please do get in contact with myself, because I'd really like to explore that. One example I will give, which relates to I suppose the Hare Hills disturbances more directly, we have linked in with a community leader who has come into the service. She's delivered a briefing to the service about the Roma community. First of all, I suppose, to upskill the service and workers so that we can be more thoughtful and understanding in the work that we are doing with families. But what that's also done is, I suppose, opened up a network to us where we are now starting to, I suppose, get a greater reach into communities so that we can start to develop some trust. This is a work in progress, but it's something that we're really committed to. So please, if you do have ideas of networks that you think we could come and speak about the work that we do in the Youth Justice Service, then we'd be really open to that, because we really see the value in that work.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask if restorative practice is still ongoing throughout the city, because it was, I can remember when it was first filtered out to all the schools in the city. However, I don't always see it taking place in schools in the outer south. So I didn't know if they got their new ways of doing restorative practice. And it mentions on a number of occasions in the paper that you're working closely with CAMS, although they have got problems regarding their waiting time. So I just wondered what impact that's having on supporting the young people with the Youth Justice Service. Thank you.
Farah, do you want to take that one?
If I come in on the restorative practice, and then Helen can answer to the work in relation to CAMS with youth justice, if that's okay. So restorative practice and the rollout of restorative practice is continuous. Whether people practice in a restorative way is a different, so experience of that will be different, but absolutely restorative practice underpins our practice model. When we were inspected last year, it was inspectors, the range of inspectors from different inspectorate bodies commented that they saw restorative practice across the partnership agents, across the different agencies. So absolutely we're still committed to that, and that's continuous because you see staff turnover not just internally but also with our schools colleagues as well, but that is ongoing, and there are lots of schools that I see that continue with that, and people are familiar, different professions, with the language and the practice, although it doesn't always feel restorative to those on the receiving end. There is another piece of work just with communities alongside adults, so the Adults Board and the Children's Board are doing a piece of work together, safeguarding within ethnically diverse communities, so we're heavily involved in that, and that's engaging wider communities about youth violence, serious youth violence, but also around safeguarding in general, which is really picking up pace and momentum and engaging faith leaders. So I wanted to come back on that point as well. I'll hand over to Ellen.
In terms of CAMS, so we have 3 CAMS nurses who are seconded into the Youth Justice Service. So for all of our children who enter into the service, we do screen those children, and if there is a need, we do offer some input. I suppose in terms of the CAMS issues wider than that, I can't comment specifically on what that looks like for the city at this moment in time, but I suppose just some reassurance that for children entering into the youth justice system, that there is that resource there, and we aim to, I guess at the first opportunity, identify what the underlying needs are for children. We also have speech and language therapists within the service as well. So we try to think about sequencing children's needs, what they need and when, particularly if they're working with us on a short intervention, sometimes 3 months. Sometimes it's about what's the first thing that the child needs right at this moment in time. So we do try to be really thoughtful about that as our model of practice.
I just wondered if you got any figures regarding the restorative practice and whether or not that was fed back also to parents, because I think it's important that not only do they carry out restorative practice within educational establishment, but also at home as well, so that there's no conflicting message to those young people.
If I could take that, what we're looking at here is the Youth Justice Report, so it's focused on quite a small group of children and young people. Those conversations about the wider restorative practice and involving parents and involving all schools and it being with school, because what we do know is that if a school doesn't have restorative practice, and I would guess it would be more in the minority now, and exclusions are high, those children are at greater risk of entering the youth justice system. So where we've got a high number of exclusions and children are missing school because education is a protected factor, and that restorative work within schools is a hugely restorative practice. If a school is undertaking restorative practice, it will include the parents, carers and families, because there is absolutely no point in working with a young person and not working with the family, because they just go home and the same patterns of behaviour repeat. And I know from working in schools, from visiting schools, that the first thing they do is involve parents, carers, and foster carers, if that's and I know our virtual school is very for those children who are looked after in the city by us. are very involved in that work and in the work of the youth justice system as well. It is a bit upsetting that we get to a point where when a child enters the criminal justice system, we were hearing about Adel Beck yesterday, then there's really good access to CAMS and to a whole team of 17 people, from psychiatrists to mental health practitioners and everybody in between, including speech and language. But that's when they get into that system. What I would like to see is that investment in CAMS so that we can do that early preventative work, identify children as neurodiverse, needing speech and language intervention and mental health support far earlier before they get to that stage where they're entering the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Renshaw, is that okay? Thank you very much indeed. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on to the recommendations. Just bear with me a second. They're quite long and involved, so just please bear with me. That the Scrutiny Board acknowledges the strategic framework in place in order to prevent children from entering the youth justice system and to support and divert those who have entered into the youth justice system in order to have a positive impact on the lives of children, their families and communities, and the work being undertaken by the Council and other partners in key areas of activity. That the Scrutiny Board acknowledges the need to promote the work of the Youth Justice Service Plan across the City, across Council directorates and wider City partnerships in order to reduce offending behaviours in children across the City, and C, to note the impact of disproportionality on children from black and ethnic minorities within the youth justice cohort to highlight systemic inequalities. The Youth Justice Service seeks to address disproportionality within the youth justice system, however it is acknowledged. Could someone propose those three recommendations, please? Councillor Mayor France. Second, Councillor Renshaw. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you all very much indeed. Moving on to, we're finally back onto the right number of the agenda. Agenda item 11, which is the work programme. As you can see, it's been laid out in front of you on the agenda pack. There are just a couple of items that I'd like to sort of mention. The post-16 send transport issue was moved from this month to September. And having spoken to Councillor Hayden and Phil and a number of other people, I understand that they would like to move this back to October for a number of very good reasons, and I don't have any objection to that at all. So the post-16 transport item will probably go to October, and we look again at what we're going to introduce in its place in September. And I was also approached about when the Children's Centre review would come back onto the work programme. At a very early stage, of course, with that, the consultation hasn't finished yet. It will go to the Executive Board in due course, and it will come back to this board at that particular point in time, and we'll insert it as and when we can. Does anybody else have any items they would like to consider for the board? Rob, do you have anything you'd like to sort of add?
No, thanks, Chair. I think you've covered it there.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the recommendation then. Members are requested to consider the board's work programme for the 25-26 municipal year. Could somebody propose that, please? Councillor Cavani. And seconder, Councillor Renshaw. All in favour? Or against? Any abstentions? Carried unanimously again. Thank you very much indeed. Just before we move on to the date and time of the next meeting, is there any other business that anyone would like exceptionally to bring up? Thank God for that. Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll move on to the next meeting will take place on the 11th of September 25. There'll be a pre-meeting for all board members at 1:15 with a start time of 1:30 as in today. As usual, I'd like to thank all members of the board for their contributions today and for keeping to time rather than last time where we ran over somewhat and delayed the cabinet meeting that was due to follow. Councillor Hayden, Dan, Phil and Farah and Rebecca, thank you very much indeed for coming down. Could you please pass on my thanks to all the officers who've come and given their evidence today to us. Without them, we couldn't really exist. So thank you all very much again, and I'll see you next time.